Today is June 27th, 2024. My name is Joe Reingold, and I'm here interviewing Eddie Garcia. Hi, Eddie. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Joe.
Tell us a little bit, whatever you want to tell us about your family background.
Sure. So I am Hispanic. My parents are both from Colombia and Panama. I was born in Panama, but my dad came to Panama when he was about 21, 22 years old. Just looking for opportunities, and he left Colombia, met my mom in Panama, and he stayed there. He feels Panamanian, but that's where most of my connection is to my family in Panama. I was born there in 1978, and to this day, most of my family still lives in Panama. My mom is one of 15 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Some have passed away at this point. My grandma and my grandparents both, grew up in a very small town, very, very small, on both sides, both my dad's side and my mom's side. My grandma lived until she was 98 years old on my mom's side, and my dad's side, she was 101 years old. Whoa. So longevity. Not so much for the grandfathers, but still pretty good genes, longevity-wise. So if all goes well, I'm right on the track too. So.
Were they all in Panama also?
Yeah. So my grandfather and my grandmother, being so many kids, little by little they started venturing out. My mom was the first one to leave that small little city, and she went to the city, Panama City, the capital, where she had a job, and that's where she met my father, in Panama City. On my dad's side, he was the first one to leave Colombia, to kind of venture out, and he was also from a pretty small town as well. So they always had this kind of aspiration to leave little towns and venture out. They're pretty adventurous, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
So how long did they stay in Panama?
So my sister and my brother were both born there before me, and so they were there until for about 13, 14 years, and then that's when we moved to the U.S. My dad was a photographer at the time, and he worked with a lot of U.S. entities there, in the Panama Canal, where there's a lot of military presence from the U.S., and still was a very active base until in the 90s, and that's where he did a lot of work. But because he was in journalism, there was a lot of turmoil during elections and things like that, and things started getting a little scary for him. So he said, this is probably not the best environment for the one that I want to raise my family. So once again, we were the first family to leave even Panama or Colombia, and we ventured, when I say we, my dad ventured to the U.S. In 1981, and he went to New York City, where he didn't speak English, he didn't have papers, residency. He came through a legal process, but it was temporary, and he just took whatever job he could, using his photography skills. He wound up getting a job in near Times Square, where they make these big murals in Times Square, because he knew how to process and develop film. So they're the big ones that they used to have with light shining behind them, and those were great for a foreigner who didn't speak English, because you were working the graveyard shift in a dark room with just you and the machines, and he felt like he was comfortable there, and that's where it all began in New York City. So we lived in Queens, and I have very, very fond memories around early age with so many variety of people. New York City is the melting pot of all nationalities, and I would hear Hebrew, I would hear Hindi and Spanish, of course, but it was a great, I think, experience as a young boy to be exposed to sights, sounds, smells, tastes, that make you who you are. So had some great memories in New York City. So um, that's kind of how our journey came to the U.S. So, and then once again, after New York, living there for 8 years, I was only 2 years old when I moved to the U.S. So now I'm 10 years old, almost 11, and my dad said, once again, this is not the environment I really want my family to live in. So due to temperature and rising costs and everything, we moved to Miami, and he got a job down in Miami, and he, he got, once again flourished. He became a business owner there. Now he was really kind of spreading his wings professionally, and he felt like it was a good environment for us. So for the remainder of my childhood, spent in Miami and grew up down there. Towards high school, we moved to Palm Beach County, so I lived in Boca Raton for several years, went to school down there, and that was kind of the remaining of my formative years, childhood in Miami, South Florida. Which is interesting because I can relate so well to people from New York and from Miami. I was kind of at that age where I could say I grew up in both places. So while my friends in Miami may not understand Seinfeld, for example, my friends in New York may not understand Miami Vice and things like that. So I felt it was a good
mix.
A good mix of everything. Yeah.
What did you do after high school?
I wanted to play baseball. My big dream, through as far as I can remember, I played sports. I did pretty well in New York when I was there playing tennis. I competed at a pretty good level. Even as a young kid, there was a few sponsorship opportunities. I was sponsored by Reebok. I actually played a few matches in Madison Square Garden. Got to meet some really cool athletes and local politicians there. I felt like, I saw how sports can really impact kids. So, my parents always pushed me. They got me coaches and things to develop that. But when we moved to Miami, although tennis was obviously a good sport to play, it was not only far, but it was very expensive. It was kind of an elite. Golf and tennis seemed to be kind of out of the reach for us. So luckily, I can transfer some of those tennis skills to baseball. So I immediately began doing pretty well in baseball. And after high school, playing for high school baseball, I joined 2 universities my freshman year, and then I transferred to play baseball. And I had a couple of scholarship opportunities to play at 2 different schools, and so baseball was really kind of my first love.
What schools?
So I went to Lynn University in Boca Raton, and then I transferred to Palm Beach Atlantic in West Palm Beach. So unfortunately I didn't get to finish graduating with baseball when I finally finished school at Palm Beach Atlantic, but it was definitely very helpful for me to not only play at that level, but also kind of learn how to break it to myself. Like, I'm not the best there is. I'm not going to be the starting position for the team. And that was kind of new for me because I had traditionally been, pretty good on an all-star team. But when you get to the higher levels, you realize there's other good, better players out there. So that kind of sobered me up pretty quick. So, yeah, I played baseball through college, and had a very good experience. Every school and things that happen in life during formative years, and even now, I could always feel like God was always preparing me for the next thing in my life, which is really neat because I often feel like, when I look at my peers or just people in general, they may struggle a little bit with transitions, but because you can tell how our family always transitioned in some capacity, moving or in-state, out-of-state, schools and everything, it wasn't such a big thing for me to transition. So it felt, you know, that whatever I was doing kind of is serving a bigger purpose for me. So it wasn't that bad.
So what did you find yourself doing after college? Or what kind of work did you look for?
So near the end of school, I had kind of, you know, that moment of saying, well, what's next? I had a good friend that graduated the year before me, and him and I were very, very close. We pretty much were about the same, and he told me he got a job as a teacher, teaching high school chemistry. And we were both on the pre-med track that we were thinking we're going to go into medical school and things like that. And, you know, once again, when you realize you're not, there's others that are better than you, you kind of realize, well, let me see what else there could be. So he was teaching high school, and that kind of gave me a little bit of an aha moment to say, maybe I can use some of these skills that I have. I like kids, I like science. Let's maybe blend the two together. So my first job out of college was a high school teacher, and it was great because I'm Hispanic. Because I was in science, I just felt like there was many opportunities for me to get work, and so sure enough, I took my first job as a you know, college grad, and it was great. They helped pay off some student loans that I had. And I just felt, you know, I was on a good course here. You know, I was going to get something, you know, somewhere in life, and bought my first house and started doing things that hey, grown-ups are doing now. So it felt pretty good.
And what did you do from there?
So when I, in about my third or fourth year teaching, I met at that point my then girlfriend, who became my wife, and I got married in 2011, and we kind of made this transition where we were going to go live back in South Florida. Well, she was from Florida, native Floridian, you know, really sweet Southern girl, and so South Florida, they say, is the only place in the world where you have to travel to the north to get to the south. Which kind of makes sense because the South is a unique place. I love it, but it's not as fast-paced as South Florida and Miami. So we had a little bit of a challenge there getting acclimated. So we wound up moving back to Jacksonville, and you know, that was my first chance to kind of really feel that sense as a man, you know, married, now in a place away from my family, and thinking what I should do. And so that was kind of a bit of a challenge internally, because there was a lot of maybe conflicts in my mind of how do I do what I've always known to do, you know, play baseball or you know, softball leagues or whatever, and be a husband and maybe have a family. So I think during those challenging years, being away from home and not, you know, not really connecting in the way that I wanted to with my relationship, that, you know, it eventually fizzled out, and we had that divorce. I remember, you know, 2011 was my, almost my, 2013 was my lowest point. I could say I'm sitting here divorced, away from my family, you know, the house is empty, you know, it was really, you know, very depressing, and I felt like I was at the bottom. And when that happened, you know, I met some new friends because I wanted to get into like a support group for divorced people, and there I met a guy, we're still best friends today. And his name is Trevor, and Trevor was a high-ranking Air Force airman, and he was active duty, and he was stationed in my neck of the woods in South Florida, and I thought, well, how is it that I thought, it just completely unraveled my thinking of what military was. And I thought, this guy is just like, normal guy like me. He lives here. How is this possible? So that was probably the first time that the idea of the military ever became an option for me. And so I think meeting him, thinking about the military in a different way, plus being at the point that I was, the low point I was in my life, I thought this could be a brand new start for me. If I do something bigger than me, which has been tested and proven, military, we're still around, let me look into it. And so when I did that, I saw all these opportunities the military had to offer. I said, what do I have to lose? Let's go for it. So I remember going down to the recruiter and checking it out. They said, sure, you're going to have to lose a little bit of weight before you join, but we'll get you there. We've done it for over 200 years. We'll take care of you. And so they did. And I shipped off to basic training at the very last possible cycle that I could have. And I turned 35 years old in basic training. I was the oldest guy by far, I think, that my drill sergeants had ever seen. And I remember turning 35 in basic, and all the kids around me were literally half my age. And, I was called Big Daddy, and old man and everything. I was also called G.I. Jew because they knew I was Jewish. And that kind of was, it was tough. It was very tough. The military is not easy. But I think I really felt I was where I needed to be. I felt like I was making people proud because I was in such a low place. And now I have a plan to do something. I felt like even if it takes time and to kind of shake off the old me and retry that, it could be a good thing. And sure enough, to this day, it's one of the best decisions I ever made to join the military. And people thought I was crazy when I joined. I remember my rabbi in Florida said, "Hey, Eddie, you don't mind if I ask you this, do you? But are you running from something? Are you trying to get away? I mean, it's not very common. A guy in his 30s is going to join the military and ship off." I said, "No, Rabbi, it's nothing like that. I just feel like this is probably the best thing for me." So I stayed I joined one in 2013, and I got out in 2016. I was medically discharged. I was in a light infantry unit, and my body began breaking down faster than they expected in that unit. So I got medically chaptered to leave the military. So I struggled with that a little bit when I got out, just feeling like I can, my buddies were still in, and they're going down to these, places that I feel like I should have been at. And I think that's pretty common for people that get out of the military, having that desertion mentality and feeling that they left people behind. But to me, it helped that it was something, not out of my control. So I try to make the best of it. And
I want you to back up for just a minute, though. So tell us your journey to Judaism.
So
you skipped that.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that.
So it was probably, again, the perfect storm in my life. During my divorce, as I'm sitting there, just at the lowest point in my life, I began looking for help. And up until that point, I was born agnostic because my dad didn't really practice anything. My mom was kind of Catholic in some regards. We don't really know much before then, and I've asked my mom because Valdez is her maiden name, and there's thoughts that maybe there's Jewish ancestry before that. But regardless of that, at that moment of me being low and thinking, I've got to draw to God, one of the places that I was going to there was a guy there, and he said, "Hey Eddie, I noticed you heard quote some scripture and stuff like that. Are you open to talking about that?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. What do you got in mind?" So he's like, "Hey, let's go play golf." And golf led to lunch. And when you're playing lunch and golf, when you're playing golf and having lunch, you have a lot of time to talk. And so this guy, also from a Christian background, which I felt Christian at that point, he had discovered Judaism. And he was the first person that I actually had conversation with that was Jewish, but that didn't speak the same Bible in the terms that I had always thought of, because as Christians you're very proselytizing, you're very evangelical, and to try to win souls, but he wasn't that way. But it really sparked a curiosity for me of why is this, why is that, and none of what I was hearing had any overlap with what I had always been taught. In school and the churches that I would go to. And it wasn't that it was disagreeing. It was deeper information, deeper knowledge. And it kind of made sense to me that if I'm to serve a God from the Bible, then that God is Hebrew. He speaks Hebrew. He's to a Hebrew people in a Hebrew culture for a Hebrew nation. Maybe there's something here that I can kind of trace back to and really spend time looking for what I feel like I need. So he was very, very instrumental. His name was Marcel, and Marcel, he moved away, I think, back to Oklahoma at that time. But that moment of him introducing me without an agenda, without ever saying, are you ready to make a switch or anything like that, just was so big for me. And that kind of stayed with me. It set me on a course to kind of just absorb everything that was Jewish. And it kind of brought back some couple of the relationships from New York when I lived there and in Miami. And when I come to realize, I've been always around Jewish people, and Jewish people had been around me, talking and influencing me, and knowing what matzo ball soup is, and the holidays and things. And so that kind of all just made sense from the beginning. And so I felt that this was a little bit more for me to spend time in. And I've always been, more inclined to things that are spiritual. And I think I get that from my dad for sure. Just, a wanderer. So I just felt like I needed to do this. I got under a great rabbi in South Florida, Rabbi Ben, and Ben Albert. And Ben was, used to those questions, and again, very, very patient. He introduced me to other guys. Some were Jewish, some were not Jewish. And so going through that learning, that transition, I just felt more and more at peace with it. At the same time, I felt a lot of questions coming my way, like, are you Jewish now? Are you, what's going on here? But the results that people saw in me, they just, they were supportive. My family was warming up to the idea that I was becoming Jewish, and then I was talking in a different way, and wearing, kippahs and my seats, and trying to do this. So I just felt like, during that conversion period, it was kind of stressful in some ways, but I just felt very much at peace. And you fast forward now, my family is very supportive. They're very happy. They know I'm with the Jewish war veterans, you know, that I'm Jewish. They know that, you know, while it's different, they still love me and they're supportive. They've now, you know, become more participatory with, and I think going back to the early sense of not knowing where our ancestry comes from, my mom is probably the most supportive of everything. She celebrates the, you know, Shabbat with me every time she's here. She celebrates the holidays. She's the first one to kind of really encourage me. So we've both come a long way in that sense.
So, as of 2016, you were still in South Florida, right?
2013. 2013.
When you left the military, then where did you go?
When I was, I got out of the military in 2016
right.
for my medical separation. I now spent 3 years in the military, and I was stationed in El Paso.
Oh, okay. So now you're in Texas.
So now I'm in Texas.
Okay.
And my AIT, my advanced training, actually backing up to basic training, was in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And very close to Texas, and then being stationed at two places back to back in Texas, I just again felt very much at home. So when I got out of the military, I wound up staying in El Paso, which was something unique for me because I always felt like I was very close to my family, but I just, at that time I thought, what do I really want to do? I spent 3 years, now almost 4 years, you know, serving my country. My body's a little bit worn down. And at that kind of that transition, I had a moment of connection with agriculture. And it was yet another big shift for my family when they heard that I not only loved and it was into everything agriculture, that I was going to start a farm. And I got out of the military with that separation, and I just went full into agriculture. I went to veterans to farming. I went to anything that, there's many programs that were helping veterans through agriculture kind of heal and rehabilitate with agriculture, some USDA sponsored programs, and I kind of latched onto that, and I thought I need to bring this back with me to El Paso and start some type of farming in El Paso. And you know, it's a big challenge. El Paso is a desert.
Yeah, right.
But again, I just felt...
Does anything grow there?
Does anything besides tumbleweeds? And
I've been there many times. I don't know.
It's incredible when I told people that. But I just felt like, you know, with good technology and in a sustainable way. They've done it in Israel. They've done it all of us. Yeah. So my farm was the first hydroponic farm in El Paso.
Oh.
And I was met with, you know, arms wide open with the school board, with the the local council of health and human services, the small business administration. Everybody was around me to try to help support me. I made connections at the YMCA and just all these civic organizations because they thought we could actually have fresh food and local foods here. So I did a lot of teaching there, and here again is this awareness that what God has me going through is going to help me in another stage further down in life. So now I'm teaching all over again. I'm using science that I learned in school and my military connection through programs that supported us, and now I'm phasing into agriculture. So it was again a big change. I stayed in El Paso. Near the third and fourth year, I became more and more into education, and I met some researchers at Texas A&M University that were also doing the same thing in hydroponics. And so that connection led to a job offer, and when I got the full-time job with Texas A&M, I wound up selling my farm. And at that point I felt kind of a closure of my time in El Paso. because the university was going to be moving their headquarters for hydroponics to Dallas. And you know, for locals in Dallas, you've seen the new building on Coit Road, really nice, state-of-the-art, greenhouses on the roof, really impressive, you know, set up there, and I helped set that up when it was first formed, and that just was kind of that moment of saying, okay, here's a foot to the next chapter in my life. So in 2018, I moved to Dallas, and before I left there, during that transition, the thing that kind of stayed permanent with me was the Jewish war veterans, because while I was active duty, I was attending Chapel 3, which is the Jewish chapel on Post, and going almost every Friday night. I met some wonderful people there, and they said, Jewish guy in the military, you need to be in Jewish war veterans. I said, Jewish war veterans? Is that for, you know, Vietnam veteran? Like, what is this? It's like, no, it's for everybody. It doesn't matter if you went to war or not, but you're going to join. I said, yes, sir. And so I signed up, and again, just wonderful people, very thankful for, and they kind of showed me how to, you know, be part of something bigger than myself. It's an organization, been around for 128 years, as you know, and again, I just felt like I was going to be part of something where I needed to be. So that transition, leaving Dallas, leaving El Paso, I already knew people here. I had met some officers from JWV in Dallas, and just feeling like, okay, I'll be okay if I need something. You know, I have at least some people to call, and so that transition just felt very natural. Again, being in Texas, I loved. Just felt like the next right thing to do. So yeah, it's been, you know, hopping around so many places, and I'm now in Dallas. It's 2024. I've been here for what, six years now, and time has flown by. This is a, you know, great city, and I love what's happening here and being part of it. Both continuing a legacy through Jewish war veterans, but also knowing that there's big potential and a lot of changes coming that you know, I feel like I can, you know, bring some of my experience to help with. So,
Are you still? I know you're not still with A&M, right? Or
not with A&M now. What really helped was that connection with the university. The lady that I worked for connected me with the admissions office at Texas A&M Commerce, and I enrolled to get my master's degree there. So I finished my MBA at Texas A&M Commerce, and that was a next transition because I felt like hydroponics and agriculture was great, but more of as a hobby or special interest. But I just felt like the opportunity to go into business was more, you know, what I felt the challenge to do. So I moved out of agriculture, finished my degree in business, and moved into the telecom space. So for maybe 3-4 years now, I've been in the telecom space, and I work now for Samsung in Plano, headquartered in Plano. It's a Korean company, but you know, it's everybody. You know, asks me questions. I work for the mobile division, so you know, I used to be asked questions about plants. Now I'm asked questions about cell phones. So you know, it's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody that you can think of that, and I'm sorry you didn't get these, but that's okay, that you would consider your mentor? Or just a great influence? Well, you've named several people already.
Yeah.
Any of those are particular?
You know, there's an official mentor that I had when I was transitioning into my business field, and that was very helpful to kind of get grounded in corporate life. But beyond that, you know, the gentleman I mentioned, Trevor, who kind of exposed me to the military, we're still very good friends. Marcel, who I mentioned, just non agenda kind of spirit, just showing me about the Hebrew culture. Obviously, my parents have just given me the best grounding that I could have ever asked for. And they still support me, they still love me, I still have them. Thankful for that. But even, at whatever city or stage in my life, there's just been fantastic men and women that have just shared, God's tikkun olam, right? Just make this world a better place. No matter where you're at, consider it just temporary and just try to flourish there. You don't have to be something that you're not. Just try to be better and help those that are around you. So I could list dozens of names that that
you're
really
fortunate, because some people I've talked with can't think of a single person necessarily that was really outstanding in their lives, and you've had several wonderful people.
Since it's fresh in my mind, you may remember the name Norton Sheckman. Norton was a lay leader in San Antonio. He ran the Jewish services at Post, the San Antonio military post there. So that's Fort Sam Houston. And he was just one of those guys that you could tell he didn't need to do that. I think he was retired several times. He may have had a couple of he may have had a couple of careers, but I remember he just always had this thing that he really loved what he was doing. And I remember he at the end of Friday night service, he took me back. He drove me back to the barracks. It just got late, and I think he wasn't supposed to transport me. He probably could have gotten in a lot of trouble for it, but he just said, I just want to help you, and it just kind of matched up with everything else, and it was kind of this feeling of like everything that I felt Judaism was before I joined recently was going to be okay with me kind of continue. Just always feeling like there was somebody there that can, just help me in a small way. So Norton Sheckman, I tell that story when I go to the conferences and conventions, that Norton was a big help in that time. He introduced me to some high-ranking people there, and I thought, okay, so Jews, we have a lot of high-ranking guys too in the military. So if I ever get into a pinch, if they don't let me go to Friday night services, I could probably make a phone call and they'll let me go. So that's where I first got the name the GI Jew. Because why are you going to service on Friday, not Sunday morning? I said, well, there's a little bit of a difference there. So, but I had a Jewish drill sergeant, and he was like, all right, get out of here, Garcia. So I was lucky in that sense. But yeah, I think that's also another story, my experience in the military, being Jewish, getting kosher MREs and being allowed to have certain holidays off. I was lucky during the years that I was in there, the regulations began changing, so you can have a camo kippah, for example. You can wear your tzitzits, but as long as they're tucked in. You could have your beard. It wasn't required to shave because of a religious exception. And so those things, they were slowly changing when I was there. And kind of the equal opportunity, inclusion type environment was also around at that time. So, when I hear stories of other guys that didn't have it as easy as I did, I'm very thankful that it could have been
just
worse.
the right time.
Yeah, it could have been worse for sure. So, I had a very good experience, always positive. And I, You know, I feel like a recruiter sometimes. You know, saying, "Hey,
give it a try.
Have you thought of this?" You know, so
yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Unpaid recruiting.
Well, it could be a paying job someday.
You never know.
Before we end, is there anything else you'd like to add or tell us about?
You know, I feel like I always want to just come back to how I got here. There was one incident that happened to me, and I can't believe I'm blanking out right now. He was a JWV member. He passed away a couple years ago, and he was a World War II survivor. You probably remember what I'm talking about. Maybe the name will come back to me.
Maury?
No. He was a shorter guy, wore glasses. He was one of the guest speakers that we had one month that came, and when he passed away, it was a big event in Dallas. They had you know, the police escort and everything. And
Harry Cabler?
No.
Not Harry? That's what I was thinking of.
I'll think of his name.
Oh, Wald? Last name Wald?
No. But he spoke, and then I went to talk to him after the meeting. And you know, I'm not a dead ringer, as they say, for somebody Jewish. Don't look Jewish, and I converted to Judaism. But every time I gotta say that I've never felt kind of made feel different or anything. And you know, I think I've always kind of maybe thought that there kind of be like some type of distinction, but I've just always felt very, very welcome. And I don't know if that's maybe my own piece about it, or if it's actually, it doesn't matter. But I've just always felt, and especially in Dallas, that there's just an acceptance of everybody. Even if I'm not, you know, I don't look Jewish and have a Jewish last name, that I've just felt at home. And I think, you know, if I really dissect it, it could be, you know, that we're supposed to treat foreigners because we were once foreigners. So maybe that spirit is still alive and well, that I've just felt very welcome. Not to say that, you know, other groups don't welcome, you know, people that don't kind of look the same, but I've just felt, for me personally, it's been a very, very big difference, and has allowed me to kind of, you know, step into roles like the commander for Post 256, because I just felt like the people that know me want me to, you know, kind of be more involved. And so that's just been big for me, and making me feel at home, and knowing that I'm setting roots down here in not only Texas but in Dallas. So I'm just very, very thankful for that kind of, not single hospitality, but I'm very thankful to God that where He's called me to be, He's also allowed me to feel at home there. So
very good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it, and your wonderful, wonderful stories. Thank you.
Thanks.